Well, John Hayes, thanks so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on. I know we are discussing pre-roll that you're down in the beautiful sunny state of Florida, which we're all jealous of, regardless of where you sit. Uh, but really appreciate the time. I think the audience will get a lot of value out of your experience. I know you're in academia as well. So without me butchering the intro, John, I'll turn it over to you for you to give yourself a quick intro.
Okay. Well, I am the Titus Chair for Franchise Leadership at Palm Beach Atlantic University, and I'm the director of the Titus Center for Franchising at the university. We're in our 7th year, and we have 60-some students who have declared a concentration in franchising, along with whatever major, whatever degree they want. If they're studying accounting or marketing, communications, leadership, political science, history, whatever they study doesn't matter. If you have a concentration in franchising, you have provided a bonus to yourself. It's the best leverage a college graduate could have for finding employment, particularly, or for getting into their own business. And college kids today are Gen Zs, and they want to own their own business, and franchising is perfect for them. We are fortunate in that there are other universities that teach some franchise courses. They usually do so online. We teach in the classroom. I have a 101 person advisory board. Franchisors, franchisees, suppliers that come from all over the country. They hire my students. They provide internships. It's no one else. I don't think any place in the world offers a concentration in franchising.
Yeah, that's amazing. A bunch of questions I have there. How did it get started? Was this an existing infrastructure that you walked into?
No.
Did you help start it?
No, I started it. I am the starting founder, but I did not provide the money. It's called the Titus Center for Franchising. A franchisor by the name of Ray Titus, who has been in West Palm Beach for 35 years. His father was the franchisor of Minuteman Press. Ray, then after college, Ray established with his father's help Sinorama. And today Ray has United Franchise Group. They have 10 brands. They're not all franchise brands. They might have 9 brands. They might have 11 brands. Some of the brands come and go. He sells some, he buys more. So he decided, his son is a graduate of Palm Beach Atlantic. It's a small Christian university on the Intracoastal, downtown West Palm Beach. It's a beautiful setting. He decided, after meeting many of the students that his son would bring home, these are kids who have a work ethic. They want to work in spite of the fact that it's a private university and it takes some money to go there. Many of our students are on scholarships. Many of my students have jobs. Several of my students have businesses. That one or two are franchisees, in fact. So, but this was not very few universities would teach franchising. Historically, business schools shunned franchising, but today a lot of schools do have something in franchising or maybe entrepreneurship. And so when Titus provided $1.5 million about 8 years ago, the university decided, the purpose of that is the university needed to establish a center to teach franchising. And then the university said to Mr. Titus, we need a PhD who knows how to teach franchising. And Ray said, he's in Kuwait. We just need to convince him to come home.
Right.
And I was in Kuwait teaching. Loved it there. I'd been there 7 years.
Wow.
And but I was a spokesperson, speaker, many, many times at conferences with Ray Titus's sponsorship from United Franchise Group. I did a lot of international work with his team. And so I was ready to come home, and I did that 7 years ago. We got started, and here we are. I've had 50 50 some graduates to date, and I've got 60 some more students in the pipeline. I graduate last year. I graduated 15 of those students, and 8 of them are franchisees now.
Amazing.
And my board loves my center because they come to campus twice a year for a meeting, but they get to meet my students essentially. And they'll say to me, I plan to hire this fellow or this gal after graduation. I said, well, great. You're not the only one. My students will get 2 to 3 offers before they graduate. So this is new. This is new to universities. University of Louisville has a good program. Babson College has a good program that they're teaching and franchising, and there are others scattered around the country. But we lead the pack. We're 7 years into it, and we just had a great reception. And my students are smart, and they know more about an FDD than many first-year franchisors know about FDDs.
Yeah, I bet. What's your background, John, in the franchising world prior to that? Have you been?
Well, that's kind of interesting because, nobody ever says, other than Ray Titus, I don't know anybody, and maybe members of the Dwyer family, now Neighborly. Don Dwyer was my client, terrific pioneer in franchising. But other than those kids of those giants like that, I don't know anybody who says, hey, now I do know. Young people who say, I'm going to get into franchising because they study it with me. But that didn't exist when I was going through college. I have 2 degrees in journalism, and I have a PhD in American studies. Nowhere in there does it say franchising. But I was a college professor, a young college professor who, in my 20s, making no money, and I had to figure out a way to make more money. I was making $12,500 a year as an assistant professor at Temple University in Philadelphia. I was the head of the magazine writing program. And I started writing books for people, because if you're in business and you don't have a book, you're missing all kinds of opportunities. First of all, media and social media included. People would want to interview you, podcasts. And the media will say you're an expert if you're an author. It's not true. And I wrote Franchising the Inside Story, and the media, this was in the early 1980s, and the media promoted me all across the country on radio. We're going to speak to the World Authority on Franchising. Stand by, stay with us. And I would laugh thinking, because I'm a journalist, I interviewed 100 people, and in 6 months I wrote Franchising the Inside Story. And then people started calling me after they would hear me on radio primarily, but my book was excerpted by International Franchise Association. And they would call me and say, well, can you write a marketing plan? Could you write an operations manual? Could you come and speak to our convention? Could you train our franchisees about media? And I started saying yes. And so I resigned from my teaching job, which I loved. And I said, I'll come back when I can afford a professor's salary. And that wasn't until, I don't know, 14 years ago, I guess.
Wow.
Now, I had my own marketing business. I had the Hayes Group, which I sold to Bizcom Associates based in Dallas. And then I was a speaker, trainer, did a lot of international work for people, helped a lot of people franchise their business. I still do that. Helped a lot of people find franchises opportunities that they can buy. So a lot of people come to me because I teach the A to Z's of buying a franchise at the IFA Franchise Expos. I've done it for 40 years practically. So that's what I do. That's what it's all about.
And so what excites you, John, about the franchise space, and what's the manifesto and the rhetoric throughout your program there at Titus with the students that come through? Why franchising versus anything else?
Well, if you want a job, Gen Zs don't want a job. If Gen Zs take a job, it has to be flexible. It might have to be remote. and it has to have a purpose that's
Mhm.
beyond making money.
Yeah.
The Gen Zs are not, they want money, they want to be wealthy, but they want to bring the community along with them, or their state, or their church, or their whatever's important to them. And
Yeah.
most jobs don't have that value, that social benefit to the job. It's a
Sure.
job, you show up and you do it and you go home, but that's not going to, business owners are making a huge mistake if they think they're going to attract Gen Zs after graduation and they don't have socially redeeming values. Or many of my students will go with companies like a Chick-fil-A, closed on Sunday,
Yeah.
following Christian values, Judeo-Christian values. So the thing about franchising is, first of all, it's a huge surprise to an 18-year-old who comes to the university and says, "You mean that business is franchised? I thought it
Mhm.
was just food that was franchised. And I don't want to run a Taco Bell, or I don't want to run a Popeyes or
Yeah.
McDonald's or whatever it might be, for whatever reason. They don't want to do it."
Mhm.
But service businesses, look at Neighborly. Neighborly, what, has 30 plus
Yeah.
home service businesses
Mhm.
that one of my students, for example, bought dryer vent superheroes,
Oh, yeah.
cleans out dryer vents, loves
Mhm.
the business, going to have multiple locations. Another one of my graduates has bought Up Closets.
Yeah.
It's a closet redesign business. So they're into, not one of my graduates yet has bought a food franchise. They've all bought service franchises.
Yeah.
And young people who might have a power washing, for example, it is a franchise. I have a student who's in the window cleaning business. It's a franchise.
Yeah.
When they find out, oh, I don't have to create the concept, the business, the idea. I
Mhm.
just have to buy one, follow the system, and be part of a network that has brand identity. And you can do that overnight. And
Mhm.
and it doesn't cost you $1 million. People
Right.
think, well, yeah, I can't get into franchising. I can't buy a business. I don't have enough money. One of my advisory board members um, will waive the franchise fee, home run franchising. He's got
Mhm.
3 different brands. He waives the franchise fee for my graduates
Yeah.
because he said, first of all, they know more about franchising than anybody else I'm going to sell a franchise to. I
Right.
don't have to teach them about franchising. If
Right.
you hire one of my graduates and you're a franchisor, you don't need to train my my student on franchising, or my graduate on franchising. I save you 6 months to a year of helping that history graduate or
Mhm.
communications graduate become really useful to you.
Mhm.
He'll
Yeah.
bring you ideas.
Yeah. Amazing. And so,
Yeah.
as it relates to Gen Z, like their personality traits and franchising, I get it totally, kind of what you're saying, but like on the personality trait side and what they want, is it that, because I wouldn't say that franchising or even just owning a business in general is less work than a traditional job, right? And in many cases, it's more work. It's just you own your time, and you're
Yeah.
the one pulling the levers. So are they attracted to just the ability to own their time and do it on their schedule, even though the workload may actually be more than just a 40-hour a week standard W-2 gig? Is that kind of what you see with your students?
Yeah. These graduates are not afraid of working.
Yeah.
And they may not want to work on Sunday because they may keep the holy day holy, and they may not
Right.
work on a Sunday, but that doesn't mean they won't work on a Sunday. They do.
Right.
If they were with Chick-fil-A, they wouldn't be able to. Uh,
Mm.
but that's not number one to them. It's owning their life.
Yeah.
That's number one. And then it's doing work that they find socially redeeming in
Mm.
addition to making them money. But, if you thought about, okay, I want to get into the dry cleaning business.
Mhm.
I don't really know how, but I know dry cleaning makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's a retail location, and you're closed on Sunday, and you're open from 7 in the morning until 7 at night, maybe. That's probably long. Those were probably long hours. customers come to you. You don't have to go to them.
Mm-hmm.
And wow. But I don't know how much equipment I need. I don't know the employees. I don't know how to do it. I have to create the system. I can learn it somehow, maybe go to work for a dry cleaner for a period of time. Or I could go buy Martinizing, a franchise. The system is already worked out. The brand is already known.
Yeah.
I'll pay more to get started because I'm buying the brand, I'm buying the system, and it's buying into a country club.
Mm-hmm.
They have everything I need at the country club, but it costs me something, $50,000 to get in, maybe $300,000 to get in, depending on what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And my graduates understand the value of that. If someone says we have the system and the brand, we already have it all worked out, you just need to come and get trained by us and follow our system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, every franchisor claims that, and there are 3,500, 4,000 franchise brands, maybe more in North America, but they're not all created equal. A lot of them are bad. A lot of them you should not buy. A lot of them, the franchisor doesn't even know what they're doing yet because they've only got either no franchisees or two franchisees, both of whom are friends or family members who are not making it. So it's hard. My students know how to do the due diligence to find out what's really going on. If I invest $250,000, how soon am I going to get that back?
Yeah. Do you find a lot of like aha moments with the students when they come into your program and you're talking about franchising, but then you start to dive into like the different types of franchises you can buy? Like if we just focus on home services, which is my specialty with junk removal, I can confidently say, just based on my upbringing and what was made popular, throughout high school and into my college years, I never once said, "Oh, I want to start a junk removal company." And I would say that's probably true for a lot of Gen Zers and folks kind of within those generations of, they don't think of home service businesses like dryer vent cleaning or redesigning closets or gutter cleaning or roofing or epoxy flooring, any of these, and say, "Oh, I want to. That's what I want to do when I grow up." Right? They see they want to be a TikTok star. They want to be the next iPhone creator, the best smartphone creator in the world, or they want to develop the next Amazon. And I get it. Like that's what our society promotes, and you see it all over the web, and so that's what our kids are going to be gravitating towards in terms of what they want to be. So when they come into your program and you start talking about the benefits of franchising, and you talk about all the industries underneath it that are profitable, that are cool, and how you build those businesses, do some folks have an aha moment like, "Oh, I never thought about plumbing as a line of business. That's actually cool if I can make a business out of it"? Or is it tough to kind of get them over that hump of, it's kind of boring, it's not sexy, but like you can make a nice living out of it? Well, what's kind of the feedback from the students when they get into that type of
I was looking around my desk to see, do I have some Christmas cards that I had just received from several students yesterday, and I could read to you. I don't take any credit. This is God channels this through me to these students. I'm not responsible for changing their lives, but they think I am. Their parents think that I am. So they will write me. I don't know. I've been teaching in college. I didn't do it for the middle years, but I taught 10 years in the beginning, 14 years, including teaching at Kent State in Ohio, 14 years until I wasn't making any money. And I wrote the franchise book, and then I had my own business, and then I did not go back. I've also been a franchisor. I was the CEO of We Buy Ugly Houses.
Oh, wow.
And I succeeded the founder, who was my friend, and then I was on his board. Unfortunately, he died, and he asked me to succeed him as the CEO and chairman of the board. So I've been a franchisor, a franchisee on numerous occasions, and a supplier. So I've done all that, and I use the benefit of that knowledge in the classroom. My first course is Principles of Franchising. That will set you on fire, or you're just not cut out for business ownership or franchising. But if I have 20 students in the room, I've got 18 who are on fire, and who tell me so, and and they can't wait to graduate. And then I will bring, in a semester, 12 to 15 franchisors, franchisees, and suppliers into my classroom to talk about how I have a board member who owns 45 Planet Fitness franchises,
Wow.
and he owns 30 Smoothie Kings, and
Hmm.
he owns 30 Buff City Soap franchises. And
Okay.
he comes in, he's a relatively young guy. And when he comes in and talks to my students, they are sky high. I mean,
I
they go
bet.
home and they tell their parents the best course they take at the university is franchising. They're not really excited about their history course, their math course, their science course. They know
Yeah.
they got to do them to get a degree, but they write me this. I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
They write this to me
Yeah.
that I've had many of them. Every year, someone will say to me, one or two of them will say to me, I don't really care about any other courses here other than franchising. I've had students who dropped out or stayed in as a student only long enough to complete the concentration and did not get a degree. They left the
Mhm.
university because they were on fire with franchising. And they're
Yeah.
out there now doing their own thing, or
Yeah.
they're working in a franchise company. I have one who just this week left for Australia. She graduated at least 2 years ago, was working an internship over at United Franchise Group for Ray Titus in franchise development, mastered it. She's headed over to Australia to lead the Titus franchise development team, and he corporately owns the units for Sinorama and other franchises over in Australia or down in Australia. So Bronwyn, my graduate, is on her. Well, she's there now, but she'll be there for a year.
That's
Where are
cool.
you going to get an opportunity like that?
Yeah.
I now can say one of my graduates works in franchising internationally,
Yeah.
and a lot of my graduates want that. They want to move to Europe for a period, South America, wherever.
Yeah.
And in franchising, we have all those opportunities. And I have international franchisors every year coming to my campus because they want to speak to my students.
Yeah. For sure. That's amazing. I can confidently say that franchising for me definitely lit me on fire because much like young folks, like I was young, only looked at franchising like the McDonald's, like the Hilton. I for some reason always thought of hospitality and hotels as always being franchise systems, and none of that ever appealed to me. Mainly because of just looking at the business on the surface. Nobody ever talked to me about how that was built or why franchising, the model of franchising, was so lucrative. And so when we got into junk removal and we eventually franchised the concept, and I went through this learning curve myself, talking with folks like you and business brokers and so on and so forth, it really made a lot of sense as to why businesses go that route. And ultimately, when they bring franchisees in, the statistics speak for themselves. I think somewhere around 9 out of 10 businesses fail in the U.S. if you just started on your own, and the opposite is true as if you buy into franchise systems. And it's like, man, if I knew that back in the day, I probably would have just gone out and bought a franchise, right? I don't want to fail
Right.
for 6 to 10 years
Yeah.
and run a business into the ground and then learn, oh, you could have just bought
Yeah.
Super Vent Dryer Heroes or whatever and really
Right.
succeeded. So I definitely align with that.
Yeah.
What if,
Well, one of the things about that I'm always cautious to tell people is franchisees do fail and franchisors fail. And the
yeah,
biggest problem is someone who becomes a franchisee invests in the wrong franchise because a broker or a franchisor salesperson will get them all excited, turn on the buttons. Next thing they invest only to find out their personality does not match up with the franchisor personality. And that is a huge mistake. I insist on the DISC profile because if you're going to buy a franchise that requires you to sell, you better have D in your personality.
right.
If you don't have that, like at Homevestors, we buy ugly houses. If you didn't have D, you are not going to be able to buy 20, 30, 100 houses a year. The top franchisees were buying 100 or more houses a year, and they were high D personalities. The S's and C's would tell people we were crooks because they couldn't buy a house, or they'd buy 4 or 5 a year, get stuck with them, and blamed it on us. But
Right.
and they should have blamed us at least to some extent because we should not have sold to those people without telling them, look, you don't have D in your personality. Look at our top 25 franchisees. They have D in their personality. You don't. Look at our bottom 25 franchisees. They have no D in their personality. This is probably where you're going to end up. Let's avoid that. You've got to hire a D personality to work in your business, or give a percentage of the business to a D personality, because we are a D personality franchise brand. And if you don't match up to that, like junk removal, if you don't have D's in the personality, those your franchisees will not perform.
Totally.
And they're going to get mad at you. They're going to sue you, and people don't do their due diligence. Well, my brother-in-law bought one, so I bought one. But my brother-in-law is doing really well, and I'm failing. Yeah, your brother-in-law maybe is an S personality, which you need in a daycare or in a senior care franchise. You better be an S personality there, but you're an I personality. No, you're probably not going to make it. Yeah. And too bad for you that you didn't do the due diligence. This is not only the franchisor's fault.
What do you say to the critics, John? And typically they show up in online forums like Facebook groups, comment sections, anything of the sort, where somebody might be promoting a franchise brand. They're trying to attract franchisee leads, and somebody jumps into a comment section and says, hey, why would you ever go and pay money to be part of a franchise system if you loading junk in a truck and hauling it off? Anybody can start that. Why would you go pay somebody else to tell you how to do that? What do you say?
We face that all the time at Homevestors, because if you're a real estate investor and like a quarter of the country wants to be or is a real estate investor, they're everywhere. They're in every neighborhood. Why would you need to spend $50,000 to become a Homevestors franchisee? Well, our best reason was, have you noticed the We Buy Ugly Houses billboards across the country? They don't exist anymore because social media is a cheaper way. But we generated 250,000 leads a year for our franchisees. How many leads are you getting, Mr. Real Estate Investor, tacking your sign up on a telephone pole, which is illegal? How many leads do you get? And you spend more time generating leads than you do buying houses. Not our franchisees. They're out there buying 100 houses a year. There aren't other people doing that unless they've got something else going on. There's always the exception. Junk removal. Okay. How many leads do you have? And there are other things in junk removal that you need to know how to do efficiently. The other thing is, as you pointed out, the Small Business Administration in the United States says, and so does American Express, and so have other studies said, startup businesses, non-franchised, 50% won't make 1 year in business. That money's lost. You spend $300,000 trying to start up, and that's gone. And then within 5 years, 80 to 85% will not be in business anymore within 5 years. Your money's gone. Now, you're not guaranteed success in franchising, but the odds are much better. If you buy into the right franchise with the right personality, you are going to succeed, and you'll get your $300,000 or whatever you invested back if you do it right. So a lot of people are ignorant. A lot of people just want to stir up things online. I pretty much ignore that. If they're really serious about learning what franchising is about, okay, I'll take time with them. We're going to have the Titus Center is going to release an online franchise study program soon. Do that. Take that. But there are always critics. There's critics in everything. So there are people who think that McDonald's is not a real business, or McDonald's just takes money from franchisees and the franchisees end up poor. And or Chick-fil-A. What's wrong with Chick-fil-A? Closed on Sunday. Well, Chick-fil-A at one point either got sued or almost sued by their franchisees, some of their franchisees, who Sunday's the biggest chicken sales day of the week, and you're requiring us to be closed. Yes, said Mr. Cathy, we are requiring you to be closed. That's our policy. You don't have to join us as a franchisee, but if you do join us, you'll be closed on Sundays. You'll never open anywhere in the world on a Sunday. Yeah. And, that's his right. That's the Cathy family's right. Mr. Cathy, the founder, is gone, but I don't have much time for the critics. I mean, they're not smart people.
I don't either. I think you hit the nail on the head there with The critics tend to get at the very ground level of what the actual service is being offered. Throwing
Yeah.
junk in the back of a truck, yeah, anybody can do it.
Yeah,
They
anybody
have
can do
arms
that.
and legs. The
Right.
bigger piece of any business is what you mentioned, the lifeblood
Yeah,
of a company, sales. How do you
exactly.
generate leads? And then
Right.
obviously when you get those leads and you get the revenue, how do you manage books? How do you manage finances? All of the pillars of a business, but they tend to focus on just the actual task
Yeah.
being done out in the field or, in a retail business, what you're doing. So
And the
totally get
thing about franchising that most people miss and misunderstand, and the thing about success in business, it's not because you didn't have enough money.
yeah,
It's because you didn't have a system that told you up front what to do, when to do it, how often to do it, how much of it to do, when to do it all again. And you
yeah,
spend all of your money trying to figure out how to generate leads. You spend all of your money hiring people. You spend your money buying the wrong truck. You spend your money on things that, had you bought a franchise where they're selling you a system and a brand, had you invested in a good franchise, you wouldn't have to figure out what to do, when to do it, how to do it, how much of it to do.
yeah,
You wouldn't have to figure that out. And
yeah,
that's where businesses fail most of the time. It's not because they're undercapitalized. They
100%.
don't know what to do, when to do it, how to do it.
Yeah,
Well, in franchising, that's a gift. That's the bonus.
yep, perfect. John, I appreciate the time. I definitely want folks to be able to find you and to find the Titus Center. What's the best way for folks to find you and reach out for anything that they're interested in maybe chatting
Yeah,
with you about?
sure. Yeah, tituscenter.com. And the Franchise Hot Seat podcast. I do that. It's on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on all the social media. Pretty
Yeah,
easy to find me.
yeah. Well, we're excited to witness from afar your continued growth at Titus. It's amazing to hear what you're doing there, and hopefully other folks catch on around the country and start standing up more programs like this inside of university and higher education, where I think
Yeah,
everybody needs much more of that. So, again, great to
absolutely.
hear from you and great to have you on, John. Thanks so much.
Right. You're welcome. Thank
All
you.
right.
Come and visit us.